Welcome to the show called Let's Talk Homeschool, brought to you by Apologia Educational Ministries. This is the show where we talk about everything homeschooling: the who, what, when, where, why, and how. We want to affirm and encourage you in the decision to homeschool, challenge and inspire you to take it to new heights, and celebrate everything you get to experience along the way in this adventure of a lifetime. Today, I'm your host, Davis Carmen, and I have a special guest, Jeannie Fulbright. Okay, Jeannie, let's talk homeschool.
All right. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yes. It's always great to talk with one of our beloved authors, author of the Young Explorer series, elementary K through 6 science, and we'll talk about that as we go. But today, what we want to do is we want to talk a little bit about homeschooling young kids and some of the experiences you had with your own family. They've all left the nest now. So tell us a little bit about your family first. How many kids do you have? A little bit of what they're doing now, and then we'll go back in time and talk about the old days.
All right. I have 4 kids. They're ranging in age now from 24 to 30, and I have 2 grandchildren. And my oldest is a mother, so she's a stay-at-home mom with her 2 babies, 2-year-old and I guess about 8 months old now. And then my other 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. They are all 3. My children graduated from the University of Georgia, and the 3 younger ones are all software engineers. So that's what they're doing. They're building software. So it's fun to watch them when they're talking to each other. I have no idea what they're saying.
Congratulations on the grandkids. I know that's an awesome new phase for both of us. So
Yes.
it's homeschooling was a big commitment. And when you started in the early days, the 90s and 2000s, what kind of difficulties did you come up against, especially in terms of finding a rhythm that made sense for your family with young, little, small kids?
When I first started homeschooling, obviously I started at the very beginning, and I started with just my daughter, and the hard part was having the young children, and they needed mommy too. So I couldn't focus all my attention on this child who needed to be educated. So I had to figure out curricula because I was in love with buying curriculum. I had a little bit of a curriculum addiction there first. And I figured out along the way that I needed to choose curriculum that allowed my child to do her work independently. And so that was I would say the biggest hurdle is when I was trying to figure out what curriculum to choose. It needed to be stuff that she could do, or if we weren't going to be doing it together as a family, when I brought the other kids along, that if it was something that it was on her level, that she needed to be able to accomplish it on her own. She needed to be able to read the instructions. Once she learned to read, she needed to read to learn. She needed to read the instructions on her own, and also be able to check whether she got the answers. If there was a teacher's manual, she needed to look and make sure she got the answers correct. I felt like imparting to her ownership of her education and giving her the opportunity to correct her answers, to look whether she got it right or not, was an important part of not only just handing over independence, but giving me a little bit of my sanity back.
There's no doubt that in homeschooling, one of our hopes and goals is that our kids will indeed become independent learners. And that can start young. Sometimes it can be the transition to junior high. Certainly by the time they get to high school, that's part of what we want to see happen. But so were there any subjects that you tended to do together as a whole family with all the kids in one sitting?
I would say the only subjects we didn't do together, and in fact, some of them we did, but math, the children did separately. Actually, but my boys were pretty close to the same level in math because I had one kind of a little bit of a slow learner, a slow developer. He's a brilliant person, but he just had some learning challenges. He just took him a little bit longer to develop than the younger brother. And so I was able to put them together in both language and math, which are typically subjects that you separate your children. But we did Bible together, we did nature study, nature journaling, we did science, history, geography, obviously read alouds, the literature we did together. So we did art and music and all the study. We had so much fun. We loved doing things together. And that was my favorite thing, is for us to combine as many subjects and do family style learning on as much as possible. And although it was hard for my son who struggled learning, he had some learning challenges, learning difficulties, which he overcame eventually. But it was nice for I could put those boys together and learning together. So that was very helpful because it is challenging when you have different subjects and trying to juggle teaching all the different subjects is too hard, and you have to figure out a way to make it easy. And I figured out in math, they could learn together because a lot of times math is just a repetition of the same subjects over and over again, and just adding a little bit more each year. So you could actually teach to the older child and the younger child if they need a little bit more practice. You can just add that in.
Right. One of the things you're reminding me is that each of our kids is a unique individual. They're going to learn at different speeds. They're going to have different interests. And then they're going to have these fast tracks where suddenly it all makes sense and all the dots connect and they really take off. And that's fun to watch. But as a parent, homeschooling, we get to witness this and understand each of our kids, again, as a unique individual so that you can do some things together. And then when it's time to have them do something independently. And yeah, you mentioned nature journals. We loved doing nature journals. That's such fond memories of the young kids doing that, as well as the read alouds. Rachel would sometimes read for 3 hours a day because she loved it. And the kids, what kid doesn't love to catch another chapter of another good story that you're in the middle of?
It was so true.
Fantastic. There's no doubt that in any family, and a family of 4 kids, you're probably going to run into some family conflict at times where they don't cooperate, or they just got to have a bad day, or you got some character issues. So what can parents do, again, with these young kids to foster some cooperation among the siblings and to minimize some of the conflicts that are bound to come up when you start homeschooling?
Well, believe it or not, I found that the more time my children spent outdoors, just out in nature, the better they got along with each other and the better they were able to complete their work, stay focused on their work, and not fight with one another. The squabbling was definitely minimized the more it was really converse, like how much time we spend in nature, how much time we spend indoors on equipment, in computers. That was where the arguing and the squabbling happened. Another thing we did is I just tried to minimize competition. I think competition is just one of those things that can really begin to evaporate that unity. And so I just minimized it as much as possible. When I had the family, I had schedules. I originally put the schedules on a whiteboard and they would just go down and check off what they needed to get done. But I found that the boys were in competition with each other to see who could get done quicker, and their work was there wasn't not good workmanship. Everything was done hurry and improperly. So I had just as much as possible minimize competition in the activities they do. But definitely nature, spending time outdoors was a key to family harmony, family unity. And there's been a lot of scientific studies that show the evidence of spending time in nature on your emotional health, your emotional regulation, anxiety, and just your peacefulness. And it's just, I think that's, I would say, number one for getting your children just happier.
I'll say amen to that. We have a wraparound porch, and when things got tense in our house, we would send the kids and say, do 10 laps around the house. And if that wasn't enough, just go outside to the playground, to the swing set, to the creek. And like you say, just explore creation outdoors. So that actually segues very nicely to one of the next questions I wanted to ask you. And that is, the series that you've written, the Young Explorer series, are all titled Exploring Creation with Astronomy, Botany, Zoology, the Human Body, Chemistry, Physics. And so we want to explore creation by way of these subjects. We want to explore creation outdoors, as you said. But tell us a little bit about the vision you had years back in writing this series, because you're now working on the second editions. So lots of time has gone by. There's been new discoveries, new understandings. For instance, I'll just say I love astronomy, and your second edition totally inspired me to where I'm looking through the telescope and watching the stars and studying astronomy at a small scale pretty regularly because of your second edition of astronomy. But go back and tell us the big vision you had and how you have been seeing it realized over the decades that it's been out.
Well, I would say the number one thing that struck me when I was trying to teach my children science was I was going to the library, as we do, and bringing home library books, and they were just so full of evolution and billions of years and this big bang. And my children wanted to learn science, but it was completely embedded with a like a brainwashing that was going on. And I realized I want to teach my children deep science, real scientific truth, but I want them to also have an awe of God as the creator of every scientific fact. I want them, when they learn about something interesting in nature, they realize God did that. That's God. And so I started originally, I was concerned about my children wanted to learn about space. And I thought, oh, we're going to go get all the books. And then they were just being bombarded with all of this evolutionary content. And so I thought, you know what? I'm a writer. I will write. I will segue from my writing because I was writing articles and contributing to magazines. I thought, you know what? I'm going to segue my writing, and I'm going to write a space book for them to do. And back then, it was back in 2000, about 2001, and when I started writing it, and it was just a labor of love for the Lord. I wanted my children to love the Lord. I remember reading a book by Elizabeth Elliot, and she talked about how her mother had imparted a love for the Lord to her through nature. And she would show her a flower, and she'd say, look at how God made all of this, the petals so sparkly. It looks like it's diamonds and it's glittering. That God did that for you because he loves you. And she just thought, oh, I want to know the Lord. I want to know this Lord who did all of this for me. And that was what I wanted to do for my children.
And like I say, that we went through all the books, the first editions back then, but some of my grandkids are using the second editions now. And I
I love that.
personally have just really love the second edition of astronomy, even though that's the first one you did with the second editions. And you're working on some now. So tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now in terms of a second edition.
So we are finishing up Zoology 3, and it's really fun. We've got some really fun activities in there that are, I think it's just going to bring Zoology 3 to life. And I'm really enjoying getting a chance to just add all the new information that we've learned and just the new science, the data out there, and just adding that in, as well as just how the beautiful images, the pictures. These new editions are just so aesthetically just beautiful. And so I'm just really enjoying doing that right now. And so we're almost done, and that's going to be published this spring.
Fantastic. So we started the conversation talking about doing some things independently, doing some things as a family. With the Young Explorer Science series, what do you recommend in terms of, is it compatible to do as a whole family? There's obviously activities, but what about the reading, and how would you recommend that families look at how to go through these books, specifically with that family dynamics that could happen?
I've seen families do it a lot of different ways, but I highly recommend for mom, because mom needs a break, to get the audiobooks. Because the audiobooks, then mom can sit with the children and listen along. And then you just pause the audiobook to do the little activity, whatever it is, the try this activities, and they can do them together. All the activities are designed to be done together as a family. The notebooking, each child has their own notebook, and all the children, your kindergartner can do the notebook at her level or his level, and then your sixth grader obviously is going to write more and add more and be a little more detailed, but they're both doing the same thing, and that brings family unity. That makes the kindergartner feel like her school is just as important as the sixth grader school, and I think it just really builds really special family memories. My children have such great memories of the projects and experiments that we did together, and learning alongside your children is one of the best parts of science.
Again, I would agree. I've been recently cleaning out my attic, and what have I found up there? Several Zoology 2 projects, several astronomy projects that my kids did from way back when that you just can't get rid of, because
I
as a
know.
homeschooling family, it really is something that you did together, and the keepsakes and the projects mean something more. So, yes, those family times are sweet memories indeed. So, we're talking about science, but earlier you did talk about some of the activities you did as a family, which were pretty varied: Bible, art, music, sports. So many things you can do together as a family. And homeschooling families tend to worry about, are we doing enough? And we can really push ourselves and be our own worst critics. So, how would you reassure families today about how much to do or how to temper that so you're not beating yourself or thinking you're not doing enough?
Yeah, I think we see all of the curriculum and all of the subjects and all of the things that we want to tackle, and we think it all has to be done right away. And it also has to be done this week and this month and this season. And we forget that this is a journey and it is a long journey. And we need to slow down and be at peace, because I think that ha- coming into your homeschool with a spirit of peacefulness is more important than all the accomplishments. And we need to recognize that the modern education system, what they created and what they have put together for institutional schools, it was never designed to give you the kind of education that prepares you for the life that God has chosen for you. That the uniqueness of your life, your education should also be unique because you are unique. God has a specific purpose and design and plan for each individual child, and we should tailor their education to support and bolster their unique gifts and talents, and not focus in on the things that perhaps they were not designed to be great at. They weren't designed to be excellent in every area of education. They were designed to be excellent in the things that God calls them to. And so many times I've seen parents so concerned because of their child's spelling or their child's math skills, and they forget that their child actually has gifts and talents. And yes, we should work on spelling, and yes, we need to work on math, but we don't need to burden ourselves that our children have to be performing at a certain level in every single subject. We need to be looking for, where has God gifted this child, and how can I be used by God to cooperate with him in ushering this child on the journey that God has for them to fulfill the purpose that he has for them.
Very well said. So, as we begin to wrap this up, let me start by having you tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you. How can they connect with you in person, virtually? What are some of the places that people can find you these days?
Really, the best way is to go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, where I send out updates and my thoughts on homeschooling, and that I try to send out every week. Not always does it go out every week, but that's really when you get one of my newsletters, if you just reply back to it, it comes directly into my main inbox and I will respond directly to you. So you can email me. I am available by email. Another area, I'm on Facebook. I don't even open Facebook very often, but I am there. I'm on Instagram. Don't open that very often as well. But I do often post on TikTok videos. I post homeschool content on my TikTok. And right now there's a homeschool conference going on TikTok. And so I'm speaking on various topics on TikTok. So really I would say my website and my email is the main way to contact me.
And what is your website URL?
JeannieFulbright.com.
All right. We're going to wrap this up now. What are some final thoughts or words of encouragement that you'd like to share that we didn't get around to in this discussion?
That's a great question. I would say my heart is for you to have joy and peace, and remember that homeschooling it's more about building the character of your family and your children's hearts, their heart for the Lord. And it's not about academic performance, because God is going to fill any gap that you think you have. He will fill it because he has a plan and purpose for them, and he'll make sure they're prepared for everything they need to fulfill that purpose. But our job is to create the memories and the moments that are meaningful and that will give your children a sense of belonging to your family. And that's a lifelong skill. That's a lifelong gift to give them. And it's more important than any academic thing you accomplish.
Jeannie, it's always great to catch up with you. And listeners, it's time to bring this conversation to a close. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. We hope you'll join us next time. This is Let's Talk Homeschool, brought to you by Apologia Educational Ministries. And I've been your host, Davis Carmen, with our special guest, Jeannie Fulbright, author of the Young Explorer series, brought to you again by Apologia Educational Ministries. All right, everyone, have a great day. And until next time, we're walking by faith and enjoying the homeschooling adventure of a lifetime.